Okay, so hi AJ, and welcome to our session at the IABD 2021 on resilience, COVID, and European travel sentiment. Um, and obviously, we share our interest in COVID-19, and COVID-19 is indeed a crisis on a scale never seen before in global tourism, in modern global tourism. During the previous year, during 2021, global tourism dropped by 74%, which really is a massive blow. You can't. There are really no other words to put it instead of massive blow. And 2021 also has a very bumpy start. In January, global aviation was 72% below global aviation in 2021, and it's still too soon to tell how 2021 will unfold globally in Europe or in the United States. I'll be taking mainly European perspective on this research, or it would be interesting to hear your reflection on the North American perspective at the end of this presentation. Now, there has been a lot of research and also a lot of public discussion regarding the effect of COVID-19 on the supply system, on airlines, on destinations, on people working in the tourism industry, on hotels. But there has been, let's say, less of attention to the demand side, how COVID-19 affected consumer sentiment, travelers, affected consumer behavior, both during COVID-19, also perhaps in the short to the medium term. And our discussion today would put the spotlight on the demand side, how COVID-19 affected demand. And as a backbone for our discussion, we use the perspective of tourism resilience. The issue of, or the perspective of resilience has started to gain more interest in the literature, not necessarily in tourism, around the 1970s-ish. It started on environmental and biology and engineering resilience, and it migrated into tourism only quite recently. And our definition today for tourism resilience would be the capacity of a system to absorb disturbance and reorganize while undergoing change so as to retain the same function, structure, and identity. One of the frameworks, maybe perhaps one of the fundamental frameworks in the discussion on resilience tourism, and in order to understand how organizations are facing changes and adapt with them, is the adaptive cycle model. Making a long story short, this cycle, which is designed like a loop, follows 4 stages. There is the stage of exploitation, that the destination is exploiting opportunities. It's on the stage of growth, goes into some kind of a status quo, conservation, and then it meets a critical change, perhaps a crisis. Then the rigidity of the organization collapses. There's some kind of release of energy, of tension, and then there's reorganization and exploitation again. And within this loop, the organization maintains its function. It both changes on the one hand, but on the same hand, it maintains its functionality, maintains identity, maintains the way to operate. And this is what is resilience. Resilience is about falling and getting up again, and falling and getting up again. And with this in our mind, with resilience on the one hand and COVID-19 on the one hand, this study aims to examine the sentiment of European travelers towards tourism in the COVID-19 era and how their attitudes, preference, and concerns are being affected by COVID. For this, we used a quantitative research. We deployed 36,000 surveys. That I think that's quite a lot in 6 monthly research waves, 6,000 surveys per wave. In the last half year, starting September 2020, and we just recently, about a month and a half ago, collected our latest survey. Surveys were deployed online via an online platform, and we looked at Europe's top 10 key source markets. That was our focus, based on the level of outbound travel they produce. And when I say we, I should say that this research has been supported by ETC, by the European Travel Commission, which is a member organization of the European Union. And it was conducted together with Mindhouse, which is a market research agency. So it's a collaboration or a joint research that has both theoretical application, of course, and application for practitioners. Now, some of our key findings show that during, and I'm showing here, this is the latest data, this is the data we have from mid-February. We're seeing that during the entire period of the pandemic, starting from September, in all of their reports, at least 50% of Europeans were planning to travel in the coming 6 months. Here in February, we can see more optimism, 2 in 3 Europeans aiming to travel in the next 6 months. And we can really see the resilience of the travel sentiment. People say, okay, there's only 2% saying, okay, I'm traveling right now, I'm traveling this month. But we can see the 2/3 are saying that, yeah, definitely we will travel in the next 6 months, which show how people are eager and committed to travel and tourism. When we ask them where they will travel, so 41%, that's these two together, will travel. For another European countries, this divided by 2, the 16% is cross-border tourism. Probably I will drive so I'm living in Germany, I would drive to the Netherlands or to Austria, and the 25% is flying. And there's a large share here in, I don't know, darkish blue. There's a significant share for domestic tourism. In the beginning, the share of domestic tourism was a little above the share of cross-country tourism, and it recently switched again, showing the resilience and the interest of people to travel within Europe. One of our, I think, very interesting findings is that although COVID-19 had a major effect on Spain, Italy, and France, and actually Spain and Italy were among the countries in the EU that were affected the hardest by COVID-19 and had the larger number of casualties. Also, same with France. These countries still lead the top 10 countries of preferred destinations. So we can really see how perhaps there's COVID-19, then there's the resilience of the willingness to travel and also to choose the same destination. In addition, we have seen some changes. 3 in 4 Europeans will travel with either their family or their partner, seeing perhaps COVID-19 as an opportunity to reconnect with their loved ones. An interesting thing to note here is that pre-COVID-19, there was a lot of hype around solo travel here in dark blue, and this says perhaps people have spent enough time by themselves in their homes, so they're now want to reconnect. So this is one of the things we're seeing that changing. Also very interesting to look at transportation. We see that half of Europeans, a little over half, here 52%, will take an airplane for their next trip. This has been on a slight rise between the different research waves. This is a little below pre-COVID-19 benchmark. On pre-COVID-19, we're talking about 60% for European travelers. Now we're talking about 52%. So that's about 15% below the pre-COVID-19 benchmark. So this is optimistic that people still want to travel and still want to take an airplane. On the same time, when you're asking people regarding their health and safety concern, so air travel is the #1 concern. So 1 of every 3 travelers is highly concerned or see air travel as the most concerning point during their travel. It's much more concerning than it's more concerning than restaurants, than hotels, than public spaces in the destination, than visiting, I don't know, attractions and touching stuff in museums. So people are very afraid of air travel. If we're already into concern, so we can identify in general 2 types of concern. One concern had to do with health issues, such as becoming ill at the destination and rising COVID-19 cases. But it's very interesting to note that there are also administrative concerns, such as quarantine measures and travel restrictions. Here we're seeing that actually quarantine measures are ranked a little bit higher than rising COVID-19 cases, especially among people who are looking to travel in the coming 3 or 4 months. So they're saying, okay, we're already feel comfortable in facing the challenge or the hazards that related to COVID-19, but we don't want to travel and then had to go back and stay in quarantine for 14 days, or I don't know, that our flight will be canceled resulting from new travel restrictions. So that's something that very concerns people. And when we ask people what they want to experience in the destination, what's important for them when choosing a destination, so before fun, before adventure, before natural beauty, the #1 thing when choosing a destination is health and safety. That's the #1 factor for over half of respondents. So it really shows a change in preferences. And also there is this 1 in 3 is very interested in finding peace of mind in the destination, at least the way that we read the data. It's not only that they want to have a relaxing time on the beach, but also people are experiencing COVID-19 as stressful times, and they really want to forget about COVID, and they kind of need to wind down from this high stress level that they experience at home in their daily lives. Okay, when we're trying to summarize these findings, so we can summarize them into 2 categories. One category is factors that are going through conservation, so functions that the travelers, the demand maintains the same, so people still have travel sentiment, they still want to fly, they want the same destination. We haven't seen here, but there's very high interest in city break, while you would expect, especially living in Utah, that people would be very interested in the outdoors when there would be natural social distancing. But during the winter, people were very much interested, Europeans were very much interested in city breaks. And apparently, if you're a city dweller and you're enjoying restaurants and shopping and city life, so COVID-19 is not going to change your personality, not going to change who you are. So these are the things that we find as being the same. On the other hand, we see a new and huge interest in health and safety, changing travel concerns, new travel qualities, and also changing travel partners. So we see both this conservation and adaptation at the same time. When we're looking it back to the literature, both of tourism resilience and particularly of the adaptive cycle model, so we can perhaps have kind of link or draw a link between this framework and what we found in the current study, because we can see that there's obviously been a crisis and the consumer are absorbing the crisis, and based on that, there is some kind of reorganization. So we maintain some preferences, we change our preferences, and overall, now we're back into the exploit. Now we're looking back into incorporating tourism back in our life. We want to be back traveling. We're going to make some changes from the preferences we used to have, but there's a resilience here, not only to the supply, not only to destinations or to hotels or to tourism systems, there's also resilience here to demand, to people's willingness and travel sentiment of travel consumer. And if till this day, the literature only examine the adaptive capacity of hotels, of destinations, of tourism system, of tangible things that are part of the supply system, perhaps this is an opportunity for us to change the discourse or extend the discourse and use both the adaptive cycle model and the tourism resilience literature to examine the adaptive capacity of travel consumer and of travel demand. And I think that this is an interesting finding that definitely worth a better deep dive, but could be the basis of perhaps a new theory or extended theory, and definitely a new research. So thank you very much. Yeah, let me just stop the recording.